Hello, Abraham. Thank you for not guacamoleing me. That was a good cartoon we saw this morning, or whatever it was. We've met before. The last time was in September of last year on the reflection on the Mediterranean cruise. And at that time I came up to the chair and introduced myself as a member of Alcoholics Anonymous for 25 years. And you had a long discussion, and it was very helpful. I've listened to it back on the tape because my wife and I subscribe to the twice-a-month tapes. It isn't out yet, but we bought the package, and I've listened to it many times. I want more clarification on, the term came up again this morning, on cellular bondage. And I want to sort of paraphrase what one of the early authors in our big book said. It was an MD, a doctor named Dr. Silkworth. And the authors of our book asked for his opinion on the disease, or whatever they called alcoholism. And he said it was twofold. It was a physical allergy coupled with a mental obsession, which meant I can't drink because if I do, I will start up a physical allergy, but I have a mind that tells me I have to drink. So I'm sort of caught in this double-edged sword. And I've worked with lots of alcoholics, and I've found that it's called the phenomenon of craving, seems to be very real. And for me it was. I was always a relatively shy and bashful youth. Grew up in a home that was sort of rough and tumble, and my dad was a drinker, and I never was very social, never went out much, never had many dates, never did anything. When I got to college, there were student union dances, and some friends and I would stand, the twist was popular, and friends of mine and I would stand around the edges of the room and watch people dance, and we sort of wish we had the guts to ask the girls to dance. Then one of them had the idea, and I never drank except sips of my father's beer. I had never had any real alcohol to drink. One of my suggested that we get hold of some alcohol before we go to the dance. So we got somebody that was of age to buy for us a quart of Tropico. It was a ready-mix screwdriver, a pint of vodka into a quart of orange juice. It was a pretty stiff drink. The three of us passed the bottle in the woods outside the student union, and then went into the dance. I was a different person. Fear was gone. In 2 weeks, I was winning twist contests. So for me, that first drink really was not the problem. It was a solution. It was a solution to what I perceived in myself to be what I needed. I wasn't bashful anymore. I grew 6 inches in height. My arms were longer. I became much more handsome. The girls all wanted to dance with me. All of a sudden, how did that happen? So that's how I was hooked. To me, that was addiction. Then I 20 years, 25, long time to get to the point where I got sober. I'm continuously sober for 24 years. Getting into that program, learning what Dr. Silkworth said, really resonates with me, the phenomenon of craving. Now, how do I compare and contrast that to what Abraham says about cellular addiction? I heard something different this morning that I hadn't heard before about it being the mental aspect of it.
Let's just sort this out. And the two aspects that you were talking about are meaningful. We find harmony with them. We want to talk about it in this way. When you introduce something to the cells of your body, of course the cells of your body are asking, and if you're really in alignment, then you feel the inspiration of their asking, and you would be inspired to participate in whatever combinations of food would satisfy the asking of the cells. Now we're talking about someone who is really thriving because they're in alignment with who they are, and their cells are in a healthy place, asking for what they want, and the impulse comes, and everybody's living happily ever
So are
after.
the cells in that case asking for, I want to be more outgoing, I want to be more social?
The cells are asking for what causes them to thrive, what causes them to be responsive, what causes them to be resilient, what causes them to be reproductive, what causes them to be flexible in the sense that there is a fluidity, what causes them to be healthy. In other words, the intelligence of the cells is quantifiable, and the intelligence of the cells is asking, and the human who's in a good emotional place, let's say, is not doing anything to block the communication, and so they're inspired to, it's like you see your dog eating grass, and your veterinarian says the dog isn't feeling good, and it's inspired to eat the grass because it knows that because someone knows that there's something in the grass that will give it something that it wants. Well, there are very few of you who are inspired to eat the grass because you are compensating with your mind and what you've learned and the beliefs that you've had, and so there is not very much inspired impulsive eating going on. But we're straying just a little bit from the basic points that you established that we want to start with here. So there is this cellular calling. When you introduce something to your physical body, and the example that we gave before was perfect inspiration, so introducing to your body something that is beneficial for it. But let's say you've introduced something to your body that it is not asking for necessarily and has not experienced before either, maybe especially in the concentration that you're giving it to your body. And the cells of your body are so resilient in nature and so adaptive in nature that they adapt to the substance that you've given in order to maintain balance. It's sort of what we're wanting to teach all of you, to maintain your balance no matter what. So the cells of your body, that's their inclination to do that. Once they've adapted, it translates to you as a wanting for more of it. That's what that craving is. When you want to know what the craving is, it's that the cells adapted. They got their engines started. They had to fire their engines up in a way that they've not done before in order to adjust to what you ingested. And now that their engines are revved up, you take that, your translation of that is that it is a craving. Now, we said earlier...
One is too many and a million's not enough at that point.
We touched on something earlier when we were talking about the momentum of things and how it could be a positive momentum or a negative momentum, but it's still a momentum. Because once something gets going, the law of attraction keeps that momentum going. And so let's just say that the craving is the momentum has got going, and if it's something beneficial to you, then yay for the craving, and if it's something detrimental to you, then not yay for the craving. So now we'd like to introduce into this conversation something that is absolute, and if you play with it a little bit, you will show it to yourself, and that is, if you do not introduce something to your body for as little as 3 days, those cravings will subside. The cellular craving will stop in about 3 days' time. The cells will adjust back to where they were before. But this doctor that you were talking about that wrote of the two aspects of this was exactly right, because it wasn't the cellular craving usually that got that started to begin with. It was an emotional craving. It was a wanting to fill the void in some way. It was wanting something that I did not have and reaching for something, and so that's that negative thing that we are talking about also, you see. Mm-hmm. So that's why in a perfect world, someone who has discovered on their own that they have you called it an allergy to something, their body is not responding the same way to it as most other bodies are responding, so they're having a negative result to it. That is the reason that if they were to go that 90 or that 3 days, or as in your case, 26 years or whatever it is, when you go that period of time without it, then the craving stops, but that other craving may still be calling you.
Unless you're on the HFD, high-flying disc.
Well, that's really what we're getting at, isn't it? Is that
that's the solution for the mental.
It is, because you just can't compensate for alignment through those other behaviors. And every single time you try, you buy one more thing and bring it home, or in other words, you're trying to fill a void that can only be filled with alignment. But since alignment isn't an option because nobody's explained to you that you're a vibrational being and that your emotions matter, in fact, almost everybody you know, is so interesting that the people that could use the most dose of alignment are those that are being the most condemned for their alcoholic behavior. And so it so works against itself. Instead of understanding what's going on, you're condemned for the results of your behavior, and which is the opposite of what you are really craving, which then causes you to then participate in. Now, why does the alcohol give you the confidence? Because in the introduction of it to your cells and in the overactivity of the cells, there is a distraction from what was bothering you. It's a sort of letting go of the cork under the water temporarily, which causes the cork to float. There have been a lot of discussions in this forum about, couldn't we just smoke marijuana and get on our high-flying disc? Or the last recording, which is going out in the program this week, there was a title called Creating Under the Influence. And because this person has had a similar experience that you have described here. And what we are explaining is that while there is some soothing of step 3 in the participating with the drugs, there is not a conscious awareness of the gain that you've made, and so it is not sustainable. And that's why that craving is never satisfied. Where when you satisfy the craving by deliberately getting on the high-flying disc, that is a satisfying of the craving that is sustainable.
And lasting.
And lasting.